We're just gonna get straight into the video. No intro. Whoa, I skipped a little too far, I guess. All right, NBA 2025 draft class is strange. It's crazy. I hope he's not talking about the #1 pick, 'cause that's the best pick, honestly, in the whole draft.
The 2025 NBA draft just happened.
Let me make sure my graphics looking good. See, that's the problem right there.
All these different questions about what's happening with these Jaylen Brown trade rumors. What's going to happen with Ace?
Chat. Let's change it to that. Change it to this.
The Ace Bailey at the top of the draft. Seems like the Nets have 5 first-round picks. What are they going to do with all
5?
There was so much momentum building towards this being an unbelievable night for the NBA. All these different rumors were swirling. All these different stars were possibly available. We thought,
Mom, recording a YouTube video. Gotta restart now. YouTube, we are back with another video. 2025 NBA draft class is strange. They're definitely not talking about the #1 pick, because my Mavs had the best pick in the whole draft. Let's get straight into it, though.
The 2025 NBA draft just happened, and it was definitely a weird one. Coming into the night, we had all these different questions about what's happening with these Jaylen Brown trade rumors. What's going to happen with Ace Bailey at the top of the draft? Seems like the Nets have 5 first-round picks. What are they going to do with all
that's
of
crazy.
There was so much momentum
I just
building
found that out.
towards
I had to
this being an
remake this whole
unbelievable night
intro.
for the NBA. All these different rumors were swirling. All these different stars were possibly available. We thought we were going to get multiple trade-ups into the top 10 of the draft. I've never seen as many rumors flying leading up to an NBA draft as we had tonight, and I really felt like there were just so many questions flying around the league leading up to probably the most excited I've been for an NBA draft in a very long time. And now we have most of those questions answered. Of course, starting at the top of the draft, Cooper Flag goes first overall, Dylan Harper goes second. We pretty much knew that was what was going to happen going into the draft, and we were decently sure that third overall was going to be VJ Edgecombe. We talked about this a couple of days ago.
I thought it was Ace Bailey.
It just made a lot of sense for them to not do with the Ace Bailey situation, get someone that fits a little bit more as a complementary player for them, and then figure out the rest of the roster. And once he got picked third overall, it became clear that the Sixers were staying at 3. They were not trading the pick. Then everything really opened up from there, because what I thought was going to happen going into the night and as the draft was unfolding is I thought a team was going to move up to 4th overall in this draft and select Ace Bailey. There's been all this conversation about the fact that he's one of the most talented players in the class, but he hasn't been working out with teams. He's been trying to force his way to particular teams, presumably Washington, maybe New Orleans, and Brooklyn. And once Edgecombe goes third, I'm thinking, okay, we're getting a trade here at 4th overall. And then Charlotte goes and drafts Con Knipple 4th overall. So I'm thinking,
oh, that's that white guy from Duke. That's Cooper Flag's teammate.
At 5 from Utah, or Ace Bailey's going 6th overall from Washington. And then the Utah Jazz just say, you know what, let's go ahead and draft one of the most talented players in the entire class in Ace Bailey at 5th overall. And it's clear that's not the outcome he wanted, because not only did he not go to one of his destinations he wanted to, New Orleans, Washington, and maybe New Orleans, but also he lost out on some money by going 5th overall when, if he'd handled the draft process normally, he might have gone 2nd or 3rd overall in this class. And now he ends up in Utah. This is obviously great value for Utah. And there's some other things happening in Utah there we could talk about here in a little bit, but this is fantastic value for them. And I really respect Danny Ainge in the front office just saying, you know what, we're going to take the guy that we think is the best player. We don't care that he hasn't worked out for us. It's not crazy, by the way, for teams to take players that didn't work out for them. Paolo Banchero, pretty famously, never worked out for the Orlando Magic a couple of years ago, and they picked him 1st overall. Like, it's not crazy that teams just say, I think you're really good.
I thought he was saying Pablo Banchero was not good. I'm like, bro, yes, he is. I'm an all Texas sports fan, you know. But my favorite basketball team for college basketball is Chapel Hill, UNC Chapel Hill, because I'm from North Carolina. Now, Texas has a strong heart. Like, it's Chapel Hill in North Carolina. But it's like, I have to pick either Duke or North Carolina, because I'm from North Carolina. I live in North Carolina. You pick one of those two, or else you don't like no team at all. That's how it is, man.
You're playing in college. We've been scouting you for over a year. We don't care if you never showed up for an individual workout. And Utah knew when they made the selection that Ace Bailey didn't want to go there, and they made the pick anyway. Now, that might mean that this is just a value play for Utah, and they're going to look at moving him in the days past the draft. That's not totally uncommon. Think about, you know, someone like Andrew Wiggins in the past getting traded for Kevin Love. It's not crazy to pick a guy in the top 5 and then trade him later on. And there were definitely rumors during the day that Utah and Danny Ainge were talking to some people in Boston about potentially a Jaylen Brown trade, maybe Ace Bailey.
I know y'all saw that. Look at their face when he dunked.
Top 5 and then trade him later on, and there were definitely rumors the day that Utah and Danny Ainge were talking to some people in Boston about potentially Jaylen Brown
he
trade.
Definitely
The
Penn State guy lost all his
But I think
door.
they just looked at the situation and realized what's the best thing we can do for our team at 5th overall, and that was take a high upside player like Ace Bailey. And I don't know if it's going to work out for them, but I can really, really respect the fact that they just said, you know what, this is the best move for us. And now Ace Bailey just has to deal with the consequences of dealing with the draft process the way that he did. He was one pick away from going one of the places he wanted to, which is Washington. They end up going with Trey Johnson, which I think is going to be a really good fit for them. And the story of the draft was pretty much settled there at 5th overall. And then we got some fireworks later on because we got two pretty significant trades as we
Dang, he wanted to be on the East Coast, and now he's all the way deep on the West Coast, bro. That's crazy work.
In the draft. Phoenix was picking at 10th overall. They end up going with Malawach out of Duke, a big guy. And at that point, I'm assuming, okay, cool, that's their center. And at the exact same time, they trade the 29th overall pick in this draft and a 2029 first that's owed to like 17 different teams in exchange for Mark Williams. Mark Williams, the trade 2.0 finally happens from Charlotte. He ends up getting moved to Phoenix, and all of a sudden they went from having nobody at the 5 spot to 2 guys that they're going to be able to develop over the next couple of seasons. I like the value for Phoenix. I like Malawach a lot. I really kind of hope the Nets were going to pick him at 8 before they took Igor Dimon. And then I think Mark Williams, if healthy, is going to be really productive and helpful for Phoenix. Obviously, you're questioning how much value there is in having those 2 guys together, but one of them is hurt all the time and the other is definitely a project. So I can understand as they're trying to figure out their team in the post-Kevin Durant era here, I really don't mind that at all for Phoenix. And also, I like the fact that Charlotte's getting value out of someone in Mark Williams that just probably isn't in their long-term plans because of all the injury concerns. But the craziest move of the entire draft happens at 13 overall. The Atlanta Hawks have this selection. They're sitting at 13. They're perfectly content making a pick. And then New Orleans calls them and says, hey, we want to move up from 23 to 13. Okay, cool. Let's do that. And they decide that they're going to trade next year's first-round pick to move out from 23 to 13 and select Derek Queen. No disrespect to Derek Queen. We're going to see how good he is ultimately. This is one of the worst draft night trades.
Who is Derek Queen? I've heard of him. What team does he play for? Somebody help me out. I don't feel like searching it up right now.
Despite trading for Jordan Poole in the middle of the week, we're not a very good basketball team and are always hurt. Every single season, half their roster is missing, which results in, like this year, them having top 7, top 8 picks. They selected Jeremiah Fears early on in the draft.
Oh, that's the guy from Maryland.
Fears, but I don't see this Pelicans roster as a group that's like guaranteed to be really good in a very tough Western Conference, and they traded the more favorable of a 2026 pick between them and Milwaukee. Essentially, they traded their own first-round pick to move up 10 spots from 23 to 13. They might have traded a top 10, a top 5 pick for next year. They were at 7 this year, in exchange for moving up 10 spots and selecting Derek Queen. Obviously, they really like Derek Queen, but I can never understand the concept of that.
I only watched one NBA Cup
game. Pick your guy at 23, move around another way. Moving up that much in a draft when you have no idea what's going to happen when you pick next year, when you're always hurt, when you're a team that even when healthy hasn't necessarily had a ton of success with this roster, makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And hey, maybe I'll be wrong, but this feels like a really aggressive move for a team in the Pelicans' position. It feels like a team completely misreading who they are as a team. Some other trade stuff happened as well. The Grizzlies ended up moving up from 16 to 11. Definitely some surprising picks here in the first round, but I think the moral of the story for this draft night was that there was definitely less movement, especially in terms of players, not just draft picks, than we really expected. I think people expected a lot more fireworks. They expected a lot more movement, and we've gotten that in the prior few days, so much so that I haven't made videos on things like the CJ McCollum, Jordan Poole trade. I have made a video on the Kristaps Porzingis trade, but I definitely expected there to be more things happening from a trade perspective tonight. Like I said, there were all kinds of rumors where the Jazz were looking at maybe trading the 5th overall pick and some other stuff in exchange for Jaylen Brown or as part of a package for Jaylen Brown. There were conversations had about Paul George getting dumped along with the 3rd overall pick, Lauri Markkanen potentially being available, and a lot of that stuff has cooled down, which to me means one of two things. One, either all these insiders that were calling for this crazy night of all these trades and a crazy offseason, a bunch of trades, are wrong, or more likely, all of that stuff is still on the table, and maybe there were picks made with value in mind, like someone like Ace Bailey at 5th overall, where the Jazz are like, hey, this is just the best asset we can get at this pick, and then maybe we'll move it later on. And also, it probably means that there's a bunch of teams out there that still see their rosters as very unfinished and see these young guys as projects and potential pieces moving forward, but not the core foundation of their team. And I think ultimately we are still going to get an extremely active NBA offseason. There's still going to be a bunch of moves in the second apron CBA era where where all these teams are trying to save money. We already saw that with the Celtics getting rid of Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis.
Nah, that's
We've
crazy.
seen already
Look,
New Orleans making weird moves like trading for Jordan Poole, which is a whole different conversation. I think New Orleans just maybe needs to exist in a separate category right now when it comes to trade stuff. But I do think we're still going to see a bunch of moves. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some.
I'm gonna say this again. How did Rutgers suck? They had Ace and Dylan on the same team.
Resolution on the Giannis thing over the next couple of days. There's still a lot to look forward to for the offseason, even though, frankly, the draft tonight was a little bit disappointing in terms of overall, big.
I did hear a lot about that. Nobody liked the draft this year. I didn't watch it. I only saw the first pick, okay? And y'all know why. Mavs on top, baby. Mavs City on top. Championship coming 2025 through 2026 season. Don't worry. But make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what your team picked. My team picked the Mavs. Tell me who your team picked. All right. And did they do second round last night? I'm pretty sure they did. I don't even know who our second round pick was. I just looked at our first round pick. I don't even know if we had a second round pick. Who knows? Who cares? We had the first round pick. It was the first pick. And guess who it was? Mr. Flag, man. Make sure y'all like, subscribe, comment. Comment your favorite team. Comment who you think y'all how y'all did in the draft. And I'll see y'all in the next one.